Hey guys, Steven with Aquatic Pools here. Want to have a quick chat about, how to pick a contractor. Let's say, that you just bought a house in Central Florida, wherever you're at. You're looking for a contractor. Well, how do you pick? What do you look at? Do you look at Google reviews? Do you look at, or do you talk to your neighbor? Or what do you do? One of the biggest things that I always tell people is look at their experience. It's just like pretend like you're hiring somebody. Pretend like you have a job opening in your company, or you're hiring a nanny, or you're hiring whatever it is. You're not going to go off of a Google review. Guess why? Google reviews can be faked. There's companies out there that charge $50 a review. And so when you see these companies that have 500 five-star reviews, you think they haven't pissed somebody off? We're trying to keep it truthful here. If you've been in business for a long time, you piss somebody off. Trust me, you can't please everybody. So if you see somebody with 500 five-star reviews, something's up. So I don't go off of Google reviews. Don't get me wrong, I use that. And I keep that in my mind, but that's not everything. I look at their experience. If they say they've been in business for 15 years, before that I worked for some other guy for 10 years, blah, 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 and I know my crap and he can ask technical questions, that's a good sign, guys. Me personally, I started out in the pit. I was the guy that was right there in that water, cleaning it out. Started at the bottom of the barrel, and worked my way up. And the reason that's good, because I've been there and done that. I made my mistakes. I mean, we're humans. We're all going to make mistakes. You're not going to be the customer now that learns from me making mistakes. I've already learned them, made the mistakes. I've already learned. I've already grown. I've already created my processes and everything. And don't get me wrong, we're not perfect. But we know what to look for 10 steps ahead. When we're working on step 1, we're thinking about step 40, because we've already done this. We know our process. We know everything. So when you guys see these fly-by-night guys, and what we call a fly-by-night guy is someone that's been in business for 2 years. If he's been in business for 2 years and he worked for somebody for 10, that's fine. He may be learning how to run a business, but technically he's okay. But if you see these guys that have been in business for a year or two and have never worked for a pool business before, they're just, hey, my buddy's a GC and I got a license. Well, that's illegal, but state of Florida doesn't give two craps about that. We've already learned that, and they're starting to crack down a little bit, but they only do it when they have to cover their butts, meaning they're screwing customers over. You, the customers, have the power. Right? It's just like, in government, you the people. You guys keep going with these cheap guys, you will lose every single time. If someone's cheap, right? If you go off a price, here's why it's bad. Let's say you get 3 quotes. One guy's 10 grand cheaper and you go with that guy. Well, this ain't like Walmart where you just walk out with your computer and blah, blah, blah. He's got to build that pool, and guess what? He's going to have cash flow issues in his business because he doesn't know his expenses. And guess what? The pool's going to sit there for 9 months while he sells more pools to pay for your pool, right? So, or he's going to cut corners in your process. He's probably going to do both, but that's what happens when you go with the cheap guys. Guys, pools aren't cheap. Get over it. Get over it. We're not marking them up, anymore. I promise you that. Crap's cheap. Everything's expensive. Go buy a steak. My ribeye that I bought from Publix yesterday, $38 freaking dollars. And we're not talking about some tomahawk. We're talking about a regular ribeye. Everything's expensive. So are pools. Get over it. If you want a pool, save up. And if you can't afford it, don't get one. Save longer. That's life, right? I want a 47-foot Freeman boat that's $1.8 million. Guess what? I'm still chugging around on my crappy old boat, but I catch just as many fish. Same thing. So guys, pools, don't go with the cheap guy. Don't go off Google reviews alone. Ask for experience, right? That's number 1. References are crap. You know why? Because if someone asks me for a reference, let's say I'm some crappy contractor, I'm going to give you my friend, or I'm going to give you someone that the happiest customer ever, right? And you're going to call them and they're going to be like, oh yeah, you're great. But you call 99 other people and they're like, oh my God, their process was horrible. So references, You know, that can be manipulated. Google reviews, manipulated. Yelp's a scam. Don't even look at Yelp. You know, the biggest thing that I tell people is look for experience. You know, if I work for another pool company, you know, or I'm a lifelong pool builder, you know, and this and that, that's good. That's good things, guys. You know why? Because I've made my mistakes. I've learned. I care. You know, if I've stayed in the industry my whole life, that means I'm passionate. That's a big thing, being passionate. You know, so when you're looking at these people, stop getting 5 quotes. That's the dumbest thing ever. All you're doing is opening the door for people to undercut people, you know, and you're just asking for bad things to happen. You know, it's the same thing like this legacy pool thing, you know, when they screwed up people. I had people in my office going, yeah, I know, we see them on the news. They screwed over 100 people, but they're $30,000 cheaper, and that's a lot of money, so I have to go with them. And then 6 months later, they come boo-hoo crying in my office, you know, about how they got screwed over. Well, no crap. The guy's never built a pool before. You know why that sucks? Because he's making all these mistakes, and guess what? Mistakes cost money, and he's selling pools for too cheap. That's a problem. Guys, that means a crappy business. Cash flow is everything if you've ever owned a business. If your cash flow sucks, you ain't getting jobs done. You know, no one wants to talk about it. Why do pools take so long to be built? Well, these pools that take 9 months because companies don't have the cash to fund the projects, right? It's the truth behind it. So, you know, guys, do your research before you get these estimates. If you get 5 estimates, people aren't going to take the time to work with you. Guys, you know, this is a two-way street. We're human beings. You're human beings. Be smart, right? If someone comes to me and be like, listen, I've done my research. I like you. I want you to build my pool. I've already done my process. You're the guy. You know, I'm not going to just say, oh, all right, and jack my price up. We have a set margin, right? We're contractors. We have a spreadsheet. We plug in the build out, you know, all the numbers from the build out, you know, which means quantities, and it gives us a price, right? I'm not going to hit you with a giant margin just because you said you're not shopping. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to be like, oh man, I want to do a good job for this person because they came to me. They respect me. That feels like I'm obligated to do a good job. And I do that, guys. Like you know, when people pick me, I'm like, man, I feel obligated to do a good job. And I sold this pool that I'm standing at myself. I designed it. I have designers that work for me. I have salesmen that work for me. I designed this pool myself. I'm sitting here making sure it gets done. And guess what? When my designers sell a pool, I make their butts go out there and make sure it's done. Make sure that they told the customer exactly what they're getting, and they get it. You know, accountability. If they told them that they were going to put a sidewalk in and they didn't put it in the contract, which means that it's not official, well, guess what? I'm going to make them pay for it. You're getting your damn sidewalk if you got promised a sidewalk. You know, so guys, someone who's passionate, someone who has the experience, not somebody that's cheap. Cheap's the biggest killer. You guys go with cheap people. This is not like retail shopping. This is like buying a boat. You're going to buy a cheap boat? Heck no. You're going to buy a good boat. You're going to buy a boat. You don't want to be in the middle of the ocean, you know, with a sinking boat or a broke down boat. Same thing with pools. You want a nightmare? Go with the cheap guy. Cash flow issues, going to take forever. Crappy products, going to fall apart. No, you know, no help on the backside. You're on your own. So guys, think about this. Be smart about this. Seriously. You know, if you don't have the money now, either one or two things, finance it or save up. Can't afford it, you can't afford it. I'm going to tell you like Dave Ramsey does. But guys, I'm Steven with Aquatic Pools. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry, I'm so passionate about this, you know, that it bugs me that I see you guys, you know, in trouble with some of these other people, you know. And if someone comes in the industry and they got a lot of pools at first, there's a couple companies around here in Broward County that are doing it right now. It's because they're selling pools for cheap, I promise you. No one has a gold mine of leads, you know, and that's a red flag. If someone comes in and says, hey, I want this job, I'll give it $10,000 cheaper. It's a lot of money. You think there's $10,000 extra fat on there? Be smart about it, guys. Ask questions. What's your experience? Act like you're hiring somebody for your company. What's your experience? Not your Google reviews, not your price. What's your experience? What can you bring to the table? You know, and that's what questions you should be asking. Guys, I'm Steven with Aquatic. I know I keep rambling on and on, you know. Please call, please email. Any questions you got, like and subscribe. Thank you.